Hey guys, Corey here. Today I have in front of me the Sony a7R II with the Modicon 50mm 0.95. So this is just a review of the Sony a7R II today. So primarily I shoot on Canon 6D with usually always use my 50mm 1.2L. So the Canon 6D only has 20 megapixels, and what I was finding was shooting a lot of portraiture. When I go to blow up images, I know this light's annoying. When I go up to blow up images, I lose a lot of detail, especially like in the eyes and stuff of my subjects. Um, Especially when I crop in. Like this photo was longer. I cropped it in to make her mostly the frame. Um, that's just a really good example of the reasons why I really wanted a higher megapixel camera. And so I started searching around, came across the a7R. It was in my price range, the first generation, definitely in my price range. So I was thinking about getting it. But after watching a bunch of reviews of people who have had the camera for like a while, like a couple months, they just weren't good reviews. I mean, it had a lot of problems, and so I decided to look around some more. I was actually contemplating switching over to Nikon, picking up either a D750 or a D810 for the money. 36 megapixels, 24 megapixels, I thought would really help. But when I got down to it, started looking around and doing a lot more research, and the Sony just blew me away. I mean, there's a lot of people on YouTube, I won't deny, that have bad reviews of it. Um, but, not everything in the world is perfect. And I think this camera, for what it does and the capabilities it has, is an amazing camera. And the 42 megapixels talks for itself. I mean, the dynamic range, the color rendition, the sharpness, the quality, it's just phenomenal. And what you can do, it's not even really what it does, it's what you can do afterwards that really makes the camera such a quality investment on my half, especially. um, I like to shoot with the 50mm. It's a focal length I really like. It doesn't distort too much of the model if you keep them in within reason. The Canon 50 1.2 uh, does a really good job of bokeh. Like, it's not matchable by really anything. It even has its own color, but I was looking at the Mitacon 0.95, and I was really digging how well it handles vignetting in the corners, sharpness, and bokeh. Way better than the Canon 50 1.2. So that was a deciding factor for buying this camera. Also, another deciding factor was the ability to use my Canon lenses again on the Sony a7R too. So, big things I like about this camera. A lot of people complain that they don't. Well, people I know complain that switching to Sony they wouldn't do because the buttons aren't good enough. Which is, I find that kind of funny because although there's no, AF drive, ISO specific buttons, and, like the 6D, you know, there's a lot of specific buttons that sit on the top of the camera. They're still right here on the camera. You just have to set it up. You know, you got a custom function button right here. Then you have two custom functions up here, a custom function down here. You got your ISO, your display, your drive mode, and then my favorite thing on this is the exposure dial. I think that's just totally rad. In video, you don't have to worry about like changing, you know, moving around a bunch of different dials like you would on the 6D to change like exposure. On the Sony, all you gotta do is just put it in program, hit the record button, and then if you want to be overexposed or, you know, underexposed, you just move the dial. And then the same thing happens with just taking pictures. So for me, whenever I shoot, especially portraiture, I like to overexpose my images by about a third of a stop, sometimes like a seventh of a stop. So whenever I shoot my 6D, I used to always do manual, but I find that when I'm shooting, sometimes I forget to even look at my camera and even think about what I'm shooting. So I'll shoot a bunch of stuff that's like overexposed, underexposed, and I'll be like, why did I do that? I just lost like 5 images. So putting in aperture priority mode helps me from doing that, because I get pretty scatterbrained sometimes. So with the Sony, I can put in aperture priority mode also, and then with the exposure dial, just change if I want a picture to be brighter or darker. Another really cool thing is the 4K on this camera. 4K video. Really awesome. Especially when you put it in let me see one second. It's doing some weird stuff. Especially when you put it in the aperture priority. APS-C mode, sorry. When you put it in APS-C mode, you get really cool, awesome, high-def 4K video. Another thing I like about this camera is the tilty screen. It doesn't swivel all the way out, but that doesn't bother me because I've been shooting with cameras that didn't even have any kind of tilt screens before this, so I don't really find that I use it a lot because I really just like to look through my viewfinder. I don't like to look at the back of my camera, so I usually just set it to that, and then when you go to look in through the viewfinder, this is all the stuff that you get to see. You get to see a histogram, and really cool thing about this camera also is if you're using a manual lens, you can hit custom function 1. I have it set up, crops in the image so you can see exactly that you're in focus or not, which is pretty cool. It has constant leveling. I have my ISO set to auto, just how I like to keep it. Or maybe I don't, never mind. So other things about this camera, you can send images really fast to your phone, so you just post it on Instagram. or whatever right in the middle of the shoot, or send it to the girl or whoever you're shooting for, just so that they can like have it, look at it or whatever. Let's just put on focus. There we go. Another cool thing is if you have a native Sony lens, then, and if it has steady shot or autofocus in it, then you can use eye autofocus, which will track the subject's eye. Let's see, more technical aspects. The menu on this camera sucks. Totally sucks. I've been shooting Canon, so maybe that's why I think it sucks. It's just not set up very well. You really have to like dig into the camera to find simple things. Like, they just put a bunch of stuff that you don't really need, you're not going to be looking at all together, with like one thing you might ever use together. So what I usually do is I just keep it on one screen, and then I exit the menu. So I set it to go to the APS-C Super 35 menu, and I leave it there because I like to jump between APS-C and full frame, especially if I'm shooting with the lens that it's only like a 24 to 105 or whatever. So I pair it up with this 24 to 105 f4 with the PhotoDiox Pro adapter. The adapter works really good for that lens, but it sucks on the 51.2. So I leave the 51.2 on my Canon 6D, and then I like to shoot with this lens. And then for portrait stuff, I use this lens. So other things about the Sony, I've already talked about: custom function buttons, an exposure dial, 4K video, which is 100 megabyte write speed, if you have a card that can do it. I do. And then the Wi-Fi and NFC is really cool. One thing I don't like is you have to update all your flashes and stuff for this stupid flash mount. So that kind of pisses me off. Now I have to buy a bunch of new flashes, but I've kind of been wanting an excuse to buy new flashes, so that doesn't really bother me all that much. And then you can use Sony E-mount glass. You can buy the LA4 adapter. You can use Canon to EF adapters. They all work perfectly fine with their own downfalls. They're not native, so they're not going to work the best. That's just how everything works. It's not going to be faster than the Canon EF system, you know. The Canon, it's a native designed by Canon for the Canon. It's going to work a lot better. So I hate when people use that as a downside to the Sony. You're shooting a Sony. If you're not shooting Sony glass, you're not going to get the best AF. That's as simple as it gets. On Canon, if you were shooting with something that wasn't Canon, you're not going to get the best autofocus. That's just how it is. Canon's meant for Canon lenses. Sony's meant for Sony lenses. But you can use other lenses on it, and this still works totally fine. I wouldn't be using it for like sports or whatever, but for portraiture, which is why I bought this camera for portraits, it's amazing. So I can't complain. It's definitely a step up from the freaking 6D. So that's my review of the Sony a7R II. I highly recommend it, especially if you're into portrait photography. You know, it's really small. It's got a lot of weight to it. That's mostly just this lens. This lens heavy as hell. But yeah. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And if you want to see more videos like this, give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, if you want, you can follow me. I'll probably be making a couple more videos today and posting them. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.